I've been wanting to get into PureScript, and I think I found the perfect excuse. Ever since I learned that Redux was inspired by Elm, a pure functional language, I've been wanting to refactor the Redux side of my React application and implement it in PureScript so that I can complete the pure functional paradigm that JavaScript lacks. So having spent about 24 hours over several days working through the PureScript by example booklet, and then spending an additional 7 hours of just diving right into the code base and trying to fix it, I came up with a solution, and here's the overview. Yeah, just to remind you all of what the application is that we're using. It's a inventory adjustments application. It's the excuse for basically writing a little bit of React and a little bit of Redux. Line by line, we load in line items, widget inventory items, and then we adjust them one by however we want. And when we have done enough adjustments, we submit the batch for processing, for updating or whatever. This is all fake data. None of it's real. It's just an excuse for exploring PureScript and Redux. Okay, so let's go to the application itself. Scope of the explanation here will be, I won't be going through setup so much. I have another video which I can link to, but basically I did some setup and wrote one function. The only thing that you really need to know is that the inventory reducer, the PureScript files have an output folder, and the output folder is symlinked to the node modules folder so that we can integrate it in our JavaScript application. So here we're looking at the Redux, we're looking at the inventory reducer adapter, which is the reducer for the inventory state written in PureScript and output in JavaScript, which we're now loading in. So takes in state in action and outputs new state. So let me start by maybe describing the challenges I faced when doing this. First of all, there are libraries out there that will do all of the Redux in PureScript, but I would instead of leveraging those, I really wanted to get in and practice, test my knowledge with applicatives and functors and monads, and really just sort of immerse myself in that world for a while so I could experience it firsthand and learn. So yeah, the first challenge that I faced is interfacing with like the JavaScript code and its objects with the actual inventory reducer itself. So initially I just thought you could, there was maybe like some mapping or some magic that perhaps happened between like simple types. And I think there is from PureScript to JavaScript. There's a good section on that in the PureScript by example book, but I don't think it works the other way. I had to use basically a foreign type to map, to be able to, and parse that, to be able to extract properties out of JavaScript objects for ingestion, for use in my PureScript code. So that is the first layer. There's a little bit of, so for example, we have the inventory reducer. It's got a foreign representing a state, foreign representing an action, and it outputs an effect foreign because we throw exceptions here. So if we don't happen to parse it right, we actually throw errors and have the Redux side crash, which is, I think, probably the right thing to do. Right. So what should I say about this? That was the one big challenge. The other challenges was reserializing back into a foreign so that the output could be understandable by JavaScript, like the new state could be used in the reducer. So I added those near the end. I think those are up at the top. But essentially, yeah, we had to take the inventory state, inventory items, and find ways to serialize them back out into an object, a foreign object. What else? Actual writing the state reducer was very simple. As you can imagine, it's just a bunch of function invocations. So the reducer itself is just a matter of taking in the inventory state, the action type, and then outputting inventory state again. And given that your action types are well defined, which they are in our case, I had to rewrite. That was the other challenge I faced. So in creating action types, I ran into the looseness of how JavaScript's models are mapped. Basically, when you create, the standard way to create an action creator in JavaScript is to submit a type and a payload. And that payload could be an error string, it could be an array of items, it could be an item, it could be another object. And so, that was right away. I had to sort of tackle that problem actually near the end when I was starting to integrate action types. But we basically found a way to parse them and map them into this action type, which has constructors for accepting, like the relevant arguments. So on fetch success, we have a list of items, right? And so then we integrate them into our state object. And when we have a fetch failure, we get an error, and so we integrate that error into the state. Updating items, in this case, when we click the modal and we click submit, it sets it to done. So this is what this reducer does. And then when we have a batch submission, we have some items that we send off. So those should be marked as submitted. That's what this reducer does. And then also I ran into a case where other Redux actions that I hadn't created were being run through the store, and that was causing crashes because the parse action function was failing to parse the Redux action. So I had to create kind of an action that does nothing, and that sort of more or less passes through with the initial state. What else? It was really fun diving into monads. So the ExceptT is a monad. It allows us to gather a non-empty list of foreign errors should you happen to read something improperly or parsing doesn't successfully happen, but still make operations on the inventory state within that monad. Should the parsing be successful? So that was fun to kind of really dive into monads and do notation and figure out how all that works and really solidify my understanding of that. What other challenges did I run into? I ran into the challenge of when parsing the action type. So this is where we map the action, not the action creator, the action itself that comes from JavaScript and its string types to PureScript types. So here we're parsing the action, we're pulling out items, for example, in the case of success, and parsing that item into a inventory item, and then lifting those items, this new action type fetch success into the ExceptT monad. So basically, we're doing that for each case. So and then so I had this sort of pass through action that I had to that I ran into, where it was failing if I didn't have this case here, where if an action starts with at Redux, it comes from the Redux store itself, and we should basically just let that pass. We should allow for that action type, and in the reducer let that pass through the state without really changing it. Before we get any further, be sure to subscribe to my mailing list, as you'll get timely notifications to my videos when they're published and access to my personal email. The last thing was really serializing. I had a problem where I was just using general serialization to serialize an object back out to JavaScript, but I ran into problems with like item status. It was assuming it was an object and outputting an object, and then in React it was saying it was noticing that I was trying to render objects, and it was complaining about not being able to render React children that are objects. So it was kind of a confusing error, but I got to the bottom of it quickly. The other thing was testing. I probably should have made the tests first, but I kind of made them as I go. It handles basically making sure that each reducer, given a set of items, outputs the right result. So that went well. You don't really need a lot of tests, I notice, in PureScript. The type system really handles a lot of it. And so this is the extent of my tests. The other thing that I think is probably worth mentioning is that AI is not that good at PureScript yet. It just doesn't seem to have been trained on much of it. So you can't really, and neither should you jump into PureScript right from JavaScript, if you've never had experience with a pure functional language. I mean, there's just too many concepts that are so foreign, I would say, to JavaScript developers. You really got to dive in, learn the concepts, learn the abstractions. And for me, I just found that I could take in maybe 2-3 hours a day. And then I just had to move on to lighter tasks because it really needs to sit with you. You need to sleep on it. You need to let it kind of sink into your mind so that you can really understand the abstractions. And that helped me a lot. Certainly, AI was able to help me a little bit with syntax, some things that I was maybe just having brain farts on. But it was not good at finding the right libraries, or it would just make up libraries that didn't exist. So there's no excuse there's no way that you can kind of write PureScript at this time without really understanding the fundamentals, and I wouldn't recommend that approach anyway. But anyway, it's a good data point, right? It is helpful a little bit, but not as helpful. I mean, you can generate almost entire JavaScript apps in like AI these days, So anyway, that's my experience. It was a lot of fun. I really liked the syntax. It took me an incredibly long time. I thought 7 hours was very long. I'm assuming that my time would be cut down probably by a third or less once I get up to speed. And I even noticed as I was developing, it was really solidifying. My understanding was really solidifying of the syntax, and I felt myself getting better at it. So I think maybe this is something in the future I could accomplish in maybe just a few hours. But it was a real pleasure. I really liked working with it. PureScript is a lot of upfront investment, and you really just got to dive in and find a good excuse to write some PureScript, and you'll see that it's really quite a unique language. You have to conceptualize everything in terms of functions and transformations, which might be a little bit foreign to, I would say, JavaScript developers and React developers. However, React itself is a movement towards the pure functional paradigm. It's just made easy for JavaScript developers. So anyway, those are my thoughts. This is the overview of my solution. I happen to have a bug which I baked in at the beginning, which had object mutation. And in the long form video, if I ever get it posted, you'll see that. But just rewriting the application in PureScript eliminated that bug, which was also very interesting. I didn't try to fix it. I just wrote PureScript code. And of course, as you know, PureScript, being a pure functional language, does not allow for mutation, which was exactly the bug I had in my code before. So anyway, that was neat to see that just by rewriting it, the bug was fixed. So, but anyway, thanks for Thanks for watching, and hope this was helpful. And I'll see you in my next video. If you want to see further exploration of next-gen web dev techniques like this one, be sure to like and subscribe and follow me on the journey. Bye now.